We'll run through the roll call real quick. Jay Bombara,
Here.
Jim Calciano,
Here.
Sally Hadson-Bueller,
Here.
Evan Honeyman,
Here.
Michelle Phelan,
Here.
John Renahan,
Here.
Ted Sanford,
Here.
and we were notified ahead of time that Liz Gemsky will not be in attendance today. So that's everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I will now call to order the virtual meeting of the Town of Farmington Historic District Commission for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 5:02 p.m. Mr. Secretary, could you please read the entire public notice into the record?
Notice is hereby given that the Farmington Historic District Commission will hold an online public hearing on Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 5 p.m. on the following application. Stephen and Elizabeth Kendrick application for temporary certificate of appropriateness to install fence at 2 Mountain Spring Road.
Okay. Thank you very much. For our first and only public hearing agenda item, the Kendricks are here on behalf of 2 Mountain Spring Road. Could you please state your names and the addresses you're representing for the record, and then please proceed with your presentation.
I'm Elizabeth Kendrick,
And Stephen Kendrick.
and we'd like to install a fence along Route 4 for a partial, not the entirety of the property, as you can see, but a portion of it. Yeah, exactly what you're showing. What you're showing there. That comes up about to the stone wall.
As the
yeah,
stone wall begins
heading
to,
west, and then up to the trees and the woods heading eastbound.
Okay.
just along there. And
That's
we
right.
want basic wood, 6 feet. We would love a topper with that. That's what we hope for. And and it's basically just to ensure privacy. Actually, we're looking at our kitchen window right now, and an endless stream of cars.
Mhm.
And it would really help, especially in the evening,
All the time,
where
all the time.
lights, car lights are often shining into our rooms. So it'd just be helpful in terms of our enjoying life here in our new property.
Okay, thank you very much. And Shannon, I'm just curious, because it's 6 feet, which is above the 4 foot rule, have the applicants already gone in front of TPZ?
They go to TPZ on Monday night. So we're doing historic district first. It really, one review and approval is not dependent on the other when we're looking at these. So it's the sequence is not overly relevant for these applications. Yep, they are independent reviews.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I did speak with Mrs. Kendrick yesterday. I believe the fence is 6 foot and the topper is an additional 1 foot. So the total height is 7 is what they're looking to proceed with. And that's the summary that I have in the agenda review for TPZ.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's open it up to questions and comments from the commissioners, and we'll start first with Mr. Calciano.
Yes, certainly know that property well. That is a busy road, to say the least. I think the fence that they're going to put in is appropriate, something that we have allowed. If ever there were a place for a fence, that's it. So I'm all in favor of it, and I like the wood fence, and I think it will look good there.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hadson-Bueller?
I just wanted to clarify the length of the fence is how long now, or how long the fencing will be?
I did a measurement on our GIS and I found it's roughly 130 to 150 feet. I don't know, Mr. and Mrs. Kendrick, have you actually measured it out, or?
That sounds right. We measured it out with a fencing, someone from the fencing company. And actually it was.
You said about
measured-
130.
It was a little, oh, somebody said. Okay, yeah.
130,
So
but
that's
if we can extend it a touch more, it would actually be helpful.
But yeah, 130. Is that what, I think that's what we put on the application.
If we can get maybe another section or two in there, but we looked at
Towards-
130.
Towards east, but yeah, 130.
Oh, but, yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Ms. Phelan?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. No questions. I agree with Mr. Calciano.
Thank you. Mr. Bombara?
Yep, just like Michelle said, I agree with Mr. Calciano. Looks great. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Sanford?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Renahan?
Like a good choice.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, if anybody from the public is on and would like to be heard, please raise your Zoom hand and Shannon will unmute you.
No attendees.
Yes, and there are, Mr. Chair, there are no attendees, but we did receive written correspondence that's displayed now on the screen from Mr. and Mrs. Corbett, the neighbors across the street. They are in full agreement with the plans. We understand wanting a fence and are in full agreement. So there's no opposition and there is support. So,
Okay,
and again, there is no one has called in as an attendee, so there is no outside member of the public that has joined us today.
all right. Thank you very much. And thanks for putting this correspondence up. Is there a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion, Evan, that we grant a temporary certificate of appropriateness for 2 Mountain Spring for the installation of the fencing in accordance with the application as submitted.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Any abstentions? Hearing none. All right, the motion passes. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all
We
so much.
appreciate it.
We look forward to it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
So we'll say bye now.
We'll let democracy proceed.
Right. All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Take care.
So that may be the one of the quickest public hearings we've had to date. That concludes our public hearing. And I believe Shannon has a staff report for us.
Yeah, just briefly with respect to an update on the expansion study. We have a letter in, so we received the completed application forms from Katie Bradley and B Stockwell. So we now have 3 properties that will be proceeding.
Hmm.
Jen Protos, Katie Bradley, and B Stockwell, all on Waterville Road. Garrett Daigle, our assistant town planner, has been assisting me with this project. Garrett prepared and submitted a letter to town council requesting that the Historic District Commission be appointed as the study committee for the purpose of completing the expansion. So that letter has been submitted. We expect that will be considered at their April 4th town council meeting. And so the study committee will be officially put in place, which will allow us then to officially complete the remaining documents. Garrett also, we had a number of members of the Unionville Historic District Commission were interested in learning how to do records research. So Garrett conducted a mini tutorial last Friday. He had the members in and showed them all the elements online, conducted a PowerPoint presentation that he'd put together, and then brought everyone downstairs to the clerk's office to expand that research and take it beyond what the online records will allow us to do, and worked with them on that. I believe they used the 3 Farmington homes as part of their research last Friday, and we will be getting their notes on that, and then we'll be able to share those. And Jay, I know you expressed some interest in looking at some things to help with the historic interest elements. The records research is really the factual ownership information. But we can share that with you and then also with Lisa Johnson, our town historian, and start to put together the rest, the color commentary, if you will, that goes in for the description of these homes and the completion of the reports. And Garrett will work with us on the mapping and the amendment to the ordinance. So those are the elements that are needed in order to complete the report. And then it would be submitted to town council for initial notification, and then to the State Historic Preservation Office to start the review process. So we probably have a month or so of work to do, depending upon the ability of folks to provide the interest portion for these, to discuss the architecture and various significant features of the homes that are being added into the district. So progress. And thank you, Jay, for working with Katie and B to get them on board.
You're welcome. Thank you for all you're doing. And yeah, I look forward to helping you. I'll certainly, I've got some stuff and we can start to put together some of the narrative. I would ask you or remind you, tell me where it is, that whatever they did for, and I can't think of the address, the other Waterville property that's already in the district, some of that will probably be helpful as well.
Certainly. Yep, we can make all that available once we get the notes in on the records research. We'll put it together a package and get it distributed.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Shannon, and again, thank you, Mr. Bombara, for bringing in those 2 additional homeowners. It really, we left that meeting moving forward with 1, and now we have 3. So pretty incredible. Thank you.
Good job, Jay.
Okay. So we have 4 items to discuss. The first is the 1928 building, and kind of a continuation from the last meeting, our last regular meeting. Hopefully you saw the email that I sent out about the committee trying to garner public opinion. Would highly recommend that you take the time to fill out the survey, the online survey, send it to friends, neighbors, anybody that might be interested in taking it. And after going through the survey and reading how everything was worded and the way it was framed, I feel fairly optimistic that there's going to be a positive outcome from the commission's perspective on the 1928 building. I can't say for sure on the other buildings that were in the as part of the survey, but I'm feeling optimistic, curious to get thoughts and feedback from anybody else who has seen it or heard anything about it.
Evan, I was just going to ask, what you thought the overall consensus has been in town, from what you're hearing. I mean, I thought the survey was a good way to reach out to different people or to, get people to weigh in, because unless it's in front of you, people don't usually do that. But, obviously we're a commission that, is looking at historic things within the town. And then this 1928 building is, part of a legacy, really. And so if it can be preserved or whatever in any way, shape or form, but obviously a lot of people might not agree with that. So I was just wondering if you yourself had any kind of consensus. You're optimistic, but can you elaborate on that? Or?
Yeah, sure. I haven't heard anything, but just based on the language of the survey, it seems favorable, in my opinion, to keeping the 1928 building and repurposing it. I think that sometimes the way a survey can be written can be a little bit indicative of how it may end up. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm curious if anyone else has viewed the language, what you guys think.
Well, Evan, I did complete it already. Thanks for forwarding it, because knowing me, I would have missed it. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting the way it's worded. I agree with what you're saying. How you frame things can certainly impact sort of the types of responses, or negative or positive, that you get. But I thought that it asked enough questions in the right way that it at least is opening people's eyes to the fact that there's probably needs in town. So there's a practical use. We're not just talking about this is a nice historical aesthetic building, but that we actually could use it for real purposes. And other people may not be aware of this. It actually not only now, and I didn't realize it would do this, it's not only talking about the original 1928 portion structure, but it also asks questions about, would you be interested in preserving the auditorium and some of the gymnasium so that it also becomes recreational or other community space, which I thought was interesting. I didn't even know that that was being considered. So I think because of that, it at least starts to open up some of the options and maybe makes people think more broadly, other than, well, do we spend all this money just to save a symbol? That's not really what this is about,
Right.
even though that's important as well. So, I thought it was pretty well done. I will, and I'm just being humorous, honestly. I did laugh for some reason that asked for your gender and for your age. I'm not sure what that had to do with anything, but at any rate, I did respond. You don't have to respond. The only thing I'll add to this, for what it's worth, it made me think more about the building, from last meeting, Evan, when you brought it up, and I did a little quick research. Interestingly, and I'm going to really sound like the old guy, the same architect, it was this guy, William Towner, who was originally from the New York area, eventually lived in Middletown. He was the architect then, as you would imagine. He really got into doing educational buildings, and he did a number of them and worked on some in Plainville, but he also happened to do Huckleberry Hill School, which, if anybody knows Collinsville and Avon, that area, it's a very small school, was an elementary school. I actually was the second to last class to graduate from there. But if you look at that building, it's got many of the same elements. It's brick, it's got the white trim, and all that. And they did preserve that. It did eventually go to private hands and became apartments, actually. Not that I'd advocate that here. I'm just saying somebody at least saw the value instead of just taking it down. Here was something that represented, the history of education, that represented the town and had a value other than just economic. So I did try to put something in there about that in my response. It does allow you to put a little bit of narrative in there, but I would encourage everybody, as Evan said, to complete it. You put your own opinion on. You may not agree. You may think it's not worth doing. But I would also urge you to send it to other people you think would have a desire to weigh in on this.
Thank you.
I thought it was good.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that?
I thought the survey was pretty good. I appreciated the way it parsed out the different buildings and the ages. And, one thing that I began to think is 1952 is not brand spanking new anymore either, but I did appreciate the way they had thoughts and ideas for how the buildings could be used, but also opened it up in a way that invited other perspectives.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to the second item here. This is also kind of a continuation from the last regular meeting that we had. And there's been some activity here. Sandy was able to convert the PDF into Word, and Shannon and Michelle have been communicating back and forth. And Michelle did a little bit of work on this. So I'll turn it over to Michelle to share what's been done, and then perhaps we can see if anybody else is interested as well in contributing, and maybe to adding to the language or reviewing language. And we can also just take this at our own pace and complete it as we have time. But Michelle?
Yeah, thank you, Evan. So what began to spark a little bit of interest in looking at it, when I initially joined the commission, I read the book because in my mind, that's what you're supposed to do before the initial meeting that I sat in. And we spoke about this a little bit at the previous meeting, where it came to the door of the Hartford Baking Company, former Truffles. There's a section, and I highlighted in here, that didn't really say too much. And but I went with it. And it was good to listen to the concerns. You know, my impression of the door, I walked past the property right before the meeting, was that it didn't conform to what might be appropriate for a historical building. But my interest in wanting to understand exactly what the guidebook said was to say, okay, upon what basis, other than my feeling or my thought, does this door not conform? And so that was kind of the genesis of my thoughts. I love the Farmington guidebook. I like the history. I like the way it walks through all the residential buildings or residential premises in towns, where it points out the different type of architectural styles, and really appreciated that piece, as well as, of course, the compliance related things between the national, statute and national preservation. So in putting this together, I don't really have a thought one way or another, although at the last meeting, Shannon, and thank you, you pointed out that Unionville overhauled, that wasn't your word, but that's the impression I got, overhauled their guidelines, and it looks like they did it in 2016. So I just took a look, and really this is all about discussion promotion. I don't have an opinion one way or another as to whether we should go forward, whether we should change, what we should do, but just to kind of start maybe a conversation. So the impression I have from the way Unionville is organized is that it takes attributes of a building, whether it be commercial or whether it be residential. It doesn't segregate the two, and then begins to say, well, this is what we would basically expect. So here you'll see I have the Farmington Historic District guideline for the storefront. We don't have anything. We have residential doors, but we don't have commercial doors in the guidelines, or I haven't seen it. I checked 3 times. But so this is what it said. And again, that door to that bakery does not conform. It certainly suggests as much in the historic guidelines. But then as you scroll down, thank you, Evan, and look at what Unionville does, is it gets more specific. So it addresses, and it doesn't distinguish commercial to residential. It just says, the main door is really important, and here's why, and here's what we're looking for. And then it also says, well, if you're thinking about doing some other things, here are our guidelines there. So where the merchant said, well, can I have a little bit of direction? Certainly the Farmington guideline provides a little bit of direction. I felt like this provided a little bit more direction. And that's really the end of my impressions there. And so I would just see if the group is interested in doing any work on the guidebook. We can certainly parcel things out just as it is here, different different attributes of a building, but it's up to the group to decide. So I just thought I would kind of bring it forward, and this is my impressions, my perspectives. They may not necessarily reflect that of the group.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Would any of the commissioners like to comment on that? Any thoughts? Well, what we can do is, we take a night to think about it, or a couple nights to think about it. And if you're interested in potentially moving something like this forward or assisting, send an email to me or to Michelle, and we can kind of chip away at this perhaps. I do agree, Michelle, that the examples of the doors in the Unionville document definitely go and provide more direction So maybe that's a good starting point, and we can, I'm not sure if we have to make changes and then probably there's a motion to approve the changes and then they get published, something like that. So maybe at the next meeting, we can have an actual discussion about accepting changes to the document and publishing those. But reach out to me, reach out to Michelle if you're interested in participating in any of those activities and working to potentially make some broader changes. Okay, and the third item, I know there's been a lot going on, Shannon and Sandy, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think one of the takeaways was that the town staff would reach out to the commercial property landlords in the downtown Farmington area. Just curious if that had happened or not.
I had not, but we'll get a letter drafted and out. I got focused on the getting items honestly over to Michelle and lost track of this one, but that's fine. We can get a letter out. I think there's a handful. We talked about Patrick down and I think there's 2 across the street. Most everyone else is individual homeowner, so there's just a handful.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we can take a look at doing that. And in fact, I made a note that I need to call the owner of Hartford Baking Company and reach out to him, and then also call Patrick if I don't get anywhere with the gentleman at Hartford Baking Company.
Okay, thank you. And although I guess it's not really, it doesn't really involve us, I am curious. He hasn't come back to us yet. And what, aside from a fine, what is the recourse from the town's perspective, and what's the timeline look like on that for him to come back and submit another application to change out the door?
That's it. It's fine. That's the only recourse we have. I mean, it's private property, so we can't, go and change out his door on him. So that's at the end of the day, it's fine. So we're, like I said, I'll start with a call to both the store owner and the property owner. Hopefully the property owner can provide some assistance. And then, if we don't get anywhere, then at some point, yes, we will have to issue a letter and fines for zoning violation. Basically, Bruce looked it up for me. There is provisions in the statute to allow us to issue fines.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
One of the things, the more I think about that door, I think we all know what it was, because most of us have been in there several times. And it is about the fabric of the building. It truly is. I went in there a couple more times in the last week, and wow, it does not have the same feeling. It does not have the same look. It's metal versus wood. It's a diamond patterned light that was wood, and crossbuck on the bottom was a substantial door. It's the feel, it's the look, the fabric of the building. This one, if anything, is very clear what a door that they need to come to us if they're thinking of doing it like that, and we just can't do it. We're just not going to give approval to something like that, because it is night and day. But to have more guidelines is great, but I think this one above all was very clear from the onset that this was not going to fly. Thank you.
Of course.
Evan, can I add one thing?
Go ahead. Yeah.
To thought, and I don't know if it makes things more difficult for people or not, but again, I think I raised this last time, and maybe Shannon just mentioned, I just didn't quite hear it. But the interesting thing here is, and maybe you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, which is you call Patrick or you call the owner and you say, look, this guy's got the problem with the door. Those fines may very well accrue to the property and not the tenant. So I think you get Patrick to deal with his tenant and say, look, take care of this, please. And if I'm fine, I'm sure they're violating their lease, and or he can pass them on to his tenant. So That might, be one way to try to motivate them to just address the issue. No one's trying to give either the tenant or the property owner a hard time. We just want it resolved.
Right.
And I do agree with what Jim just said. And I don't want to get too much into it because we're going to have the door before us at some point, hopefully. But I would say that if somebody's trying to figure out what to do, look at what was there, look at the building itself, look at the buildings around it. That tells you and informs you what is appropriate, and that's our standard by statute and regulation.
Thank you. Yep. Look, I hope that it obviously doesn't get to the point where where the town is fining either the landlord or the tenant. And obviously we all appreciate the work that the business owner does, and thank him for putting his business in downtown Farmington and what was going to be a vacant spot. So, but agreed, we just want to get this resolved, obviously. So thank you. Any other questions or thoughts on that? Okay. Our last other business item here is where are the welcome letters in a way. So there's it's kind of broken out into a few different sections. Hopefully you've had a chance to kind of read some of the language, but I'll turn this one over to Michelle as well.
Yeah, so first, thank you, Shannon, for providing all the artifacts. And there was one that's not part of this attachment here, that where it looks like one way Unionville is soliciting is to take a picture of a residence and send it to the owner and says, hey, to the point, speaking to the point where they did that presentation and saying, this might be a historic property. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the property you own, let us know. So I did want to let you just share that, and I don't have it in here. But what I did do was I looked at our welcome letter and then what was provided to me. And so with our welcome letter, I have the body of the letter attached, and to my way of thinking, and it's very important, and I'm not saying one thing is more important than the other, but this does kind of addresses the rules of engagement in living in a home that is part of the historic district, which is very, very important, and people have to understand. Which, kind of to the point where we have our merchant at the Hartford Baking Company, exactly why it's helpful to understand what the obligations are. But there are benefits as well, and we can perhaps speak to them. But the other thing is, and could you scroll back up there, Evan? Yeah, here. So the other kind of pieces to a potentially body of a letter or letters, I was thinking maybe there could be a couple or three templates, not hard to put together, is just a welcome, the mission of the historic district. So people, are pretty clear. We might think it's self-evident, but maybe not all do. And then involvement. So one of the things that the Unionville letter does is say, hey, we got some other things going on, and here's a link. So for us, we have the Farmington Historical Society, and maybe as part of the welcome and as part of embodying so much of the history of the district, let folks know what's out there for them. And again, this is another one I'm calling discussion promoter. And it's really not meant to do anything more than just stimulate thought or potential conversation, and that's really kind of everything to it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and for putting this together, and thank you, Shannon, as well, for pulling together all the documents and the examples for Michelle and the commission here. I think this is a great idea, and even if we just start with two of the templates, it's at least it's a great start as we build out potentially a third as well. I'd be happy to work with you on this, Michelle, and again, we can kind of take this at our own pace. But if, like with the guidebook document, if anybody is interested in participating and reviewing, adding language, feel free to send me an email, send Michelle an email, and perhaps by the next meeting we'll have something for the kind of finalized versions for the commission to review and I guess get a consensus on at least.
Yeah, you know what, Evan, I just noticed, I said I didn't include that picture, but at the bottom, I guess I did. I just didn't include the picture. I forgot. See, that's because I did this, 2 days ago. But here's the other solicitation, and my comment is the nice, but who has time. But I really like this because it is an indirect invitation, and so somebody obviously did some research to identify this home in particular being the example. I'm sure there are others, and then went ahead and proceeded with a soft solicitation. So just wanted to include that as well.
Great, thank you. Any thoughts or questions on that from any of the commissioners? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. And moving on to the minutes, we have meeting minutes from our last regular meeting on Tuesday, February 15th, 2022 to consider. Would anybody like to comment or make any changes? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, any abstentions? Hearing none. All right, the minutes passed. Thank you very much. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.